Close your eyes now, let your head sink a little deeper into the pillow. Feel the weight of the day gently melting away as my voice wraps around you like the softest cashmere blanket on a cool Paris evening. Breathe in slowly. Breathe out even slower, and allow yourself to drift toward Montmartre, where the street lamps glow amber and the air smells faintly of warm crepes and impending rain. Tonight there is no hurry, no noise, only my whisper and the quiet rhythm of your own heart. We are going to walk together, very softly, through the secret life of a shy young woman named Amélie Poulain, a girl who learned how to turn tiny acts of kindness into fireworks of hope. Every detail you are about to hear is true to the film. Every stolen glance, every skipped heartbeat, every texture of old wallpaper, and taste of creme brulee crust cracking under a spoon. Nothing will be hidden from you tonight. I will spoil the entire story so you can simply relax into its colors and let it carry you to sleep. Imagine the year is 1997, Paris, late summer, the city lights shimmering on wet cobblestones after a sudden shower. A tiny fly lands on a hand belonging to a little girl who will grow up to change lives without ever asking for thanks. That girl is Amélie. She is 6 years old, wearing a red dress, heart racing because the doctor's stethoscope is cold against her chest, and every time her nervous father checks her heartbeat she jumps, making him believe she has a heart condition. So she is raised like a fragile bird inside four walls, homeschooled, daydreaming, touching the rough grain of wooden furniture with her fingertips, listening to the creak of the old floorboards, inventing entire universes inside a single sunbeam that sneaks through the curtains. Can you feel that loneliness, soft and heavy like velvet? Have you ever built whole worlds inside your room because the outside world felt too loud? Let that memory surface gently, then let it float away on tonight's breeze. Fun little secret. The very first image Jean-Pierre Jeunet shot for the movie was not Amélie at all. It was that fly landing on a child's hand, filmed in extreme close-up with a macro lens, and the crew spent an entire afternoon coaxing a single fly to cooperate. Another whisper of trivia. Every single scene in the film was shot using only practical lighting and real locations in Montmartre. No CGI cityscapes, just honest golden hour sunlight and flickering cafe bulbs. Feel the warmth of that sunlight on your own cheek now, as though you are standing on the same hill where Amélie will one day stand. Years pass like pages turning slowly. We see Amélie as a young woman, 23, quiet, dark bobbed hair framing, huge curious eyes, working as a waitress at the Café des Deux Moulins. She moves between tables like a ghost, tray balanced perfectly, the porcelain cups clinking so softly, only she can hear their secret conversations. She lives alone in a small apartment above a grocery store, walls painted pale green, a goldfish named Blubber who gets depressed and tries to commit suicide by leaping from his bowl, a garden gnome that belongs to her widowed father and never moves from his spot in the garden. Her mother died years ago, crushed by a tourist who jumped from Notre Dame. Life has taught Amélie that the world can be cruel in the most random ways, so she protects her heart the way one might protect a match flame in the wind. Do you ever do that, hold something precious so tightly that you almost forget to let it breathe? It's all right, just notice the feeling, then exhale. On the night Princess Diana dies, August 31st, 1997, Amélie is in her bathroom, the tiles cool under her bare feet, the air thick with steam. She hears the news on the radio, drops a small glass perfume stopper. It rolls, clink, clink, clink across the floor, and behind the loose tile it knocks against, she discovers a rusty metal box hidden decades ago by a little boy who once lived there. Inside, marbles that feel like frozen drops of ocean, faded black and white photos, a toy cyclist missing one wheel, tiny treasures smelling of dust and time. In that moment, something shifts inside her chest, like a bird finally deciding to test its wings. She decides right then to find the grown man who lost this childhood and give it back, anonymously, just to see what happens when joy arrives unexpected. That single decision becomes the first ripple in a pond that will touch countless lives. Feel your own heart flutter now, soft as moth wings. What small act of kindness have you been putting off, telling yourself it is too tiny to matter? Let that thought dissolve like sugar in warm tea. The rain begins outside, gentle, steady, the kind of rain that makes Paris smell like wet stone and roasted chestnuts. I will stay with you through every step of Amélie's adventure, describing every color, every texture, every whispered confession, until your breathing is slow and deep, and the city itself tucks you in. Whenever you are ready, simply let your body grow heavier, heavier, as we step together into Act 1. Let the rain keep falling outside your window, soft, steady Paris rain that smells of wet stone and distant bakeries, while we slip quietly into the first act of Amélie's secret life. You are safe here, breathing slow, shoulders melting into the mattress as I paint every tiny detail for you in the gentlest whisper. Amélie stands in her bathroom, barefoot on the cool hexagonal tiles, holding the rusty tin box against her chest as though it is still warm from another child's hands. The metal is rough with oxidation, flakes of rust staining her pale fingers like cinnamon. She lifts the lid again and the smell rises. Old paper, attic dust, a trace of cedar from someone's long ago drawer. One by one she touches the treasures. A smooth green marble that catches the bathroom bulb's light and throws a tiny emerald galaxy onto the wall. A miniature zinc cyclist whose front wheel is bent so he will always ride in mournful circles. A stack of sepia photographs curled at the edges. Boys in short trousers, solemn faces, a girl with ribbons. Amélie's own childhood rushes back to her. The silence of her house, the way her father's medical fingers only ever touched her to take her pulse, never to hold her hand. She presses the box to her heart and decides tonight she will become someone else's miracle. The next afternoon she is at the cafe, apron crisp, moving between tables like a quiet breeze. The air smells of espresso grounds and buttery croissant flakes that stick to the wooden floor. There is Lucien, the grocer's kind assistant with soft eyes and clumsy hands, stacking peaches so gently you would think they were made of glass. There is Georgette, the tobacco girl, coughing delicately into lace handkerchiefs. Hippolito, the failed writer, nursing the same coffee for hours. Joseph, the jealous ex-lover, recording every word his former girlfriend Gina says on a tiny tape recorder hidden in his pocket. All of them wounded birds, Amélie thinks, and her heart aches with tenderness. Have you ever looked around a room and suddenly seen how fragile everyone truly is? Let that tenderness stay, soft. Don't push it away. That evening she begins her detective work. She wraps the tin box in brown paper, the color of café au lait, ties it with red garden string that smells faintly of earth. She finds the name Bredido scratched inside the lid and spends hours in the phone booth outside the metro, coins clinking, pages of the directory rustling like dry leaves. Her breath fogs the glass. Finally, she tracks him to a tiny apartment in the 18th arrondissement. Instead of knocking, she chooses mystery. She waits until he leaves for his shift as night watchman, then slips the package into the largest coin slot of a public telephone booth nearby, dials the number, and hides across the street behind a plane tree whose bark is cool and rough against her cheek. When Dominique Bretideau answers the ringing phone and finds the box, he opens it right there on the pavement. His knees buckle. He sits down hard, tears cutting clean paths through the dust on his cheeks, clutching the toy cyclist like a lost child. Amélie watches from the shadows, heart pounding so loudly she is sure the whole street can hear. Joy, she discovers, tastes like salt and electricity. Trivia whispered just for you. The real Café des Deux Moulins still exists, and after the film came out, they kept Amélie's usual table empty for years as a quiet tribute. Tourists still leave crème brûlées there with little notes. Another secret. Audrey Tautou was so shy during auditions that she hid behind her hair exactly the way Amélie does, and Jeunet knew instantly she was the only one. Emboldened, Amélie begins her quiet revolution. She starts with her father, Raphael Poulain, a retired army doctor who lives alone in a house filled with silence, and the motionless garden gnome. Every day he polishes the same pair of shoes that will never walk anywhere. Amélie steals the gnome while he naps, hands it to her flight attendant friend Madeline, and soon postcards begin arriving from all over the world. The gnome in front of Red Square. The gnome wearing a sombrero in Mexico. The gnome gazing at the Taj Mahal at sunset. Her father's eyes widen each time an envelope drops through the letterbox. For the first time in decades, he dreams of travel, of oceans, of leaving the door ajar to possibility. Can you remember the last time someone surprised you with wonder? Let that memory glow gently behind your closed eyelids. Next, she turns her attention to the cruel grocer Collignon, who humiliates Lucien daily, calling him idiot, retard, useless. Amélie moves through his apartment while he is at the market, silent as moonlight. She unscrews the doorknob and reverses it so he will lock himself out. She replaces his slippers with identical ones, a size too small, so his toes curl in pain. She swaps his toothpaste for foot cream and his strong aftershave for gentle floral water. Each prank is tiny, harmless, perfectly timed. When Collignon finally explodes in confusion and rage, he blames age, fate, bad luck, never suspecting the tiny waitress with the gentle smile. Lucien watches wide-eyed as his tormentor unravels, and for the first time stands straighter. Revenge, Amélie learns, can taste like the sweetest justice when served cold and invisible. Have you ever wished you could right a wrong without anyone ever knowing it was you? Feel that wish rise and fall with your breath, then let it go. Tonight we only carry softness. She befriends the glass man, her neighbor Raymond Dufayel, an elderly painter with bones so brittle he has not left his apartment in 20 years. He spends his days copying the same Renoir painting, Luncheon of the Boating Party, year after year, because he can never quite capture the expression of the girl drinking a glass of water. Amélie visits him with warm brioche wrapped in wax paper that smells of vanilla and butter, sits on his worn velvet sofa while dust motes dance in the slanted light. They talk about loneliness, about fear, about how some people are like goldfish in too small bowls. He sees into her soul and gently warns her, "You help everyone else, but you're starving yourself, little Amélie." She smiles, offers him another slice of brioche, but his words settle in her chest like a small, smooth stone. And through it all, the rain returns again and again. Soft Parisian rain that makes the zinc rooftops shine like fish scales and turns every street lamp into a tiny moon. You can almost smell it now, can't you? Cool, clean, full of promise. The rain has softened to the faintest mist now, the kind that kisses your cheeks without ever quite becoming drops. And we are moving deeper into the second act, where Amélie's heart begins to beat for someone other than the lonely strangers she has been saving. Let your own heartbeat slow to match the rhythm of the city at 3 in the morning, when even the cats walk quietly on the rooftops. One ordinary afternoon, the cafe door swings open, and in walks Nino Quincampoix, tall, slightly awkward, wearing a faded green jacket that smells faintly of photo-developing chemicals and rain. He is carrying a battered album under his arm, and Amélie feels the air change the way it does just before thunder. Nino works at a sex shop by day and at a traveling ghost train by night, but his true obsession is collecting the torn passport photographs that people discard under photo booths all over Paris. He glues the ruined faces into his album like rescued souls, searching for patterns, for stories, for the secret reason people always look so startled in those little squares of light. When he leans over the counter to ask Gina something, Amélie notices the tiny scar above his left eyebrow, the way his fingers tremble slightly when he turns a page, the soft cotton sound his sleeve makes against the zinc counter. She forgets to breathe for 3 full seconds. Trivia whispered only for you. The album of torn photos is real. The art department spent weeks ripping thousands of actual booth pictures and aging them with coffee and cigarette ash so they would smell exactly like forgotten memories. Another secret. Matthew Kassovitz, who plays Nino, is terrified of scooters in real life, so every time you see him zoom away on that rattling old Vespa, he is genuinely white-knuckled under the helmet. That same evening, Amélie finds one of Nino's lost treasures under the photo booth at Gare de l'Est. A single strip of 4 images of a bald man pulling increasingly strange faces. On the back, in Nino's careful handwriting, is a plea. If found, please return to Monsieur Quincampoix. Instead of returning it directly, she begins her most elaborate game yet. She tears the strip into pieces, hides them in tiny red arrows made from torn metro tickets, leaves cryptic messages on the back of cafe receipts, turns all of Paris into a treasure hunt designed for one shy collector. She watches him from cafe windows, from behind newspaper kiosks, heart fluttering like a trapped moth each time he discovers another clue. Have you ever wanted someone so much that your entire body felt made of static electricity? Let that memory rise gently, then let it settle again like dust on old film reels. Meanwhile, the glass man continues painting his Renoir. Every afternoon, Amélie brings him something small. A warm chestnut wrapped in newspaper, a single violet from the flower market, a recording of whale songs she found in a second-hand shop. In return, he offers her the truth she keeps avoiding. That boy with the album, he says, brush poised above the canvas, he's looking for the same thing you are, someone who sees the beauty in broken things. Amélie blushes crimson, hides behind her fringe the way she did when she was 6. The old man smiles, bones creaking as he leans closer. You're so afraid of being hurt that you've become a ghost in your own life, ma petite. His words land soft as snowflakes but melt into something hot inside her chest. One night she follows Nino to the ghost train at the fun fair on Boulevard de Clichy. The air smells of burnt sugar and ozone. She buys a ticket, steps into the rattling car, and as skeletons lunge and red lights flash, she sees him in the control booth, headphones around his neck, laughing at the screams. When the ride ends, she leaves behind a single blue garter belt. One of hers, soft elastic, tiny satin bow, looped around the plastic skeleton's wrist like a promise. The next day, Nino arrives at the cafe, searching every face, holding the garter like a fragile bird. Amélie hides in the kitchen, heart racing so hard she has to press both palms against the cool metal fridge to steady herself. Can you remember the exact moment you realized you were falling in love and were terrified and delighted at the same time? Let that delicious fear wash over you now, warm and safe, because nothing bad can happen here. She escalates the game. She dresses as Zorro for no reason except joy, black cape fluttering, sword made of cardboard, and leaves Polaroids of herself in disguise taped under park benches. She records mysterious messages on his answering machine, using a voice distorter that makes her sound like a 1940s French resistance fighter. She sends him on a wild goose chase across the city that ends at the Sacré-Cœur at sunset, where hundreds of red balloons are released into the pink sky. Nino stands at the top of the steps, album clutched to his chest, turning in slow circles, searching for the invisible puppeteer who has been making his heart dance for weeks. Amélie watches from the shadow of the funicular, tears mixing with the mist on her cheeks. She is so close to reaching out, but fear folds her in half like a paper doll. Do you ever stand at the edge of something beautiful and freeze, worried that touching it will make it disappear? Breathe into that feeling tonight. Notice how gentle it becomes when you simply allow it to be. The glass man sees everything. One afternoon he invites her in and shows her his newest copy of the Renoir. For the first time in 20 years, the girl with the glass of water has the correct expression. Soft, open, unafraid. I finally understood her, he says quietly. She isn't drinking to quench thirst. She's drinking life itself. Amélie stares at the canvas until the painted girl seems to breathe. When she leaves, the old man presses a small key into her hand, the key to his apartment. In case I'm not here when you finally decide to live, he whispers. She kisses his papery cheek and promises nothing, because promises feel too heavy for her fluttering heart. Outside, the city smells of roasted chestnuts and wet leaves. Somewhere a saxophone is playing a slow, mournful version of La Vie en Rose. Amélie walks home along the Canal Saint-Martin, watching the reflections of street lamps ripple like golden fish. She is 23 years old and has never been kissed. The thought makes her both laugh and want to cry. She stops on a bridge, leans over the iron railing, and speaks aloud to the dark water. I want to be that girl in the painting. I want to drink life. The canal carries her words away without answering. The mist has thickened into a gentle, steady rain again, the kind that makes every street lamp wear a soft halo and turns the whole city into a watercolor painting left out in the weather. We are still in the second act, the part where Amélie's courage and her fear wrestle like two kittens in a paper bag. Let your limbs grow even heavier now. Let the mattress hold you the way Paris holds secrets. Amélie stands in her tiny kitchen, barefoot on the cold linoleum, staring at the blue garter belt. Nino returned to the cafe lost and found box at the cafe. It lies there like a sleeping butterfly, satin bow slightly crushed. She picks it up. presses it to her cheek. It still carries the faint scent of the ghost train, burnt sugar, cheap fog machine, and Nino's skin. Her reflection in the dark window looks back at her eyes, huge, frightened, hopeful. She decides tonight is the night she will finally meet him, really meet him, not as a shadow or a clue or a masked Zorro, but as herself, Amélie Poulain, ordinary girl with an extraordinary heart. She spends hours preparing. She washes her hair with chamomile shampoo that smells like summer fields, braids it while still damp so that tomorrow it will fall in soft waves. She chooses her favorite green dress, the one with tiny mother-of-pearl buttons that feel cool and smooth between her fingers. She practices saying hello in the mirror until the word loses all meaning and becomes only breath. Then, fear creeps in again, cold as the bathroom tiles. What if he finds her boring? What if her voice shakes? What if love, when it finally arrives, is too bright and she has to close her eyes? She sits on the edge of her bed, knees drawn up, rocking gently, until the rain against the window pane sounds exactly like her heartbeat. Trivia just for you. The green dress Audrey wears in the final scenes was dyed 23 different shades before Jeunet found the exact hue that made her look like a leaf that has decided to become a flower. Another whisper. Every single rain scene in the film used real water. The crew followed actual weather forecasts and sometimes waited weeks for the perfect drizzle. At 3 in the morning she cannot sleep, so she goes to the Café des Deux Moulins, even though it is closed. She lets herself in with her key, the bell above the door giving its familiar tired jingle. Moonlight falls through the windows in silver bars across the checkerboard floor. She sits at her usual table, orders an imaginary crème brûlée, taps the caramel crust with the back of a spoon that isn't there, hears the imaginary crack that always makes her smile. Then she writes Nino a letter on a real letter, on pale blue paper that smells of lavender, telling him everything. How she has been the masked avenger leaving arrows. How she collects skipped heartbeats the way he collects torn photographs. How terrified and alive he makes her feel. She folds the letter into a paper boat, places it in an empty Perrier bottle, and sets it sailing across the zinc counter as though the cafe were an ocean. She watches it drift, then panics, snatches it back, stuffs it into her pocket. Not yet. The next day is the carnival at the Place du Tertre. The air is thick, with the smell of waffles and gunpowder from the shooting gallery. Children's balloons bob like bright thoughts above the crowd. Amélie wears a red scarf that flutters like a signal flag. She spots Nino near the carousel photographing a little girl who is crying because her balloon escaped. He kneels, shows her the picture on his digital screen, makes her laugh instead. Amélie's chest aches with tenderness. She steps forward, then backward, then forward again, a tide pulled by 2 moons. Finally, she tears a page from her notebook, writes, "Follow the arrows" in purple ink, and sticks it to the back of his jacket when he turns to buy cotton candy. He discovers it minutes later, spins around, but she has already vanished into the crowd like smoke. That evening, she engineers their almost meeting at the porn cinema, where Nino sometimes works the projector. She buys a ticket to a film she will never watch, sits in the back row behind him, heart hammering so loudly she is sure the entire theater can hear. On screen, exaggerated moans and neon flesh, but all she sees is the back of his neck, the soft hairs curling at his collar. She reaches out, fingertips hovering an inch from his shoulder, then pulls back. The moment stretches like warm toffee. When the lights come up, he turns. Their eyes meet for the very first time without masks or clues or shadows between them, and the world stops. He smiles, uncertain, hopeful. She smiles back, then bolts like a frightened deer. Outside, she leans against the cinema wall, gasping, rain cool on her burning cheeks. So close. Do you remember a moment when you were one single heartbeat away from changing your life forever, and something inside you pressed the brake? Feel that trembling now, soft, forgiven, already turning into something brave. Back in her apartment, she collapses onto the bed, fully dressed, shoes still on, staring at the ceiling where moonlight paints slow-moving rivers. She imagines every possible version of tomorrow. The one where she finds the courage, the one where she loses him forever, the one where she stays a ghost until she is old and translucent. Tears come, quiet ones that taste of salt in Paris rain. Then something extraordinary happens. The doorbell rings. She freezes. No one ever visits her. She tiptoes to the peephole and sees the glassman's elderly cleaning lady holding a videotape. Inside is a message from Dufayel himself, filmed in his apartment among his many Renoirs. He speaks directly to the camera, voice papery but firm. Amélie, life is not a film you watch from the back row. You are not the narrator. You are the heroine. So go be kissed, you wonderful idiot, before I die of impatience. He even cries a little, which makes her cry harder, but the good kind of crying that washes fear away. She falls asleep, still clutching the tape, rain ticking against the window like a countdown. The rain has almost stopped now. Only the occasional drop slides down the window pane like a slow tear saying goodbye to the night. We are entering the third and final act, where Amélie's heart finally learns how to open instead of only how to hide. Let every muscle in your body loosen a little more. Let the bed sheets feel like clouds. Let my whisper be the only thing holding you to the earth. Amélie wakes on the morning of the decisive day with sunlight pouring through her curtains in thick golden ribbons, the kind of light that makes dust motes look like tiny floating lanterns. She can still taste last night's tears, but they have dried into something that feels almost like courage. She dresses carefully. The green dress that looks like a new leaf, the red scarf like a heartbeat around her neck, soft leather shoes that make almost no sound on the stairs. In the mirror, she practices one last time. Hello, I'm the one who has been playing with you. The words come out steady. She smiles at her reflection, surprised by how unafraid the smile looks. First, she goes to the Café des Deux Moulins. The morning crew is setting out chairs, the smell of fresh coffee curling through the air like warm fingers. She leaves Nino's repaired photo album on the counter with a new page added, a collage she stayed up all night making, every clue she ever left him arranged into the shape of a giant red arrow pointing to her own address, 8 Rue des Trois Frères. On the final page, she has written in her neatest handwriting, "If you want to know who has been making you run all over Paris, come tonight at 8. I will be the girl who is finally not hiding." She signs it simply A. Then she walks away before anyone can see her shaking. Trivia softly for you. The exact apartment building used for Amélie's home is still there. Fans leave garden gnomes on the steps to this day. Another secret. When Jeunet filmed the scene of Amélie running through the streets in slow motion, He played the music of Jan Tiersen at full volume on set so the extras would naturally move in rhythm, creating that floating dream-like-a-dream feeling we all remember. The rest of the day passes in a haze of small miracles. Her father calls to say he has booked a flight around the world because the gnome postcards finally pushed him over the edge of dreaming into doing. Lucien tells her Collignon has apologized and offered him a raise. Even Blubber the goldfish seems less suicidal. Amélie floats through it all, feeling as though someone has replaced her blood with champagne bubbles. 8 o'clock approaches like a slow sunrise. She lights every lamp in her apartment until the rooms glow amber, bakes Madeleine cakes so the hallway smells of warm butter and lemon vanilla, puts on her favorite record, the accordion waltz that always makes her want to dance even when she is alone. She waits. 8:15. 8:30. No doorbell. Her heart begins its old familiar shrinking. She imagines Nino laughing at the album, deciding the game is over, choosing mystery over reality. She sinks onto the sofa, knees to chest, and feels herself turning back into the frightened little girl who used to hide behind curtains. Then the doorbell rings. Once, twice, urgent. She opens the door, and there he is, Nino, soaked from a sudden summer shower, hair plastered to his forehead, eyes wide and shining. He holds the album against his chest like a shield. "It was you," he says, half question, half prayer. She nods, unable to speak. Rainwater drips from his eyelashes. He steps forward, slowly, as if she might vanish, and touches her cheek with fingers that tremble. "All this time," he whispers, "I was collecting faces, but I was really looking for yours." Have you ever stood in a doorway and felt your entire future balance on one single breath? Let that moment live in your chest tonight, warm and safe and already fulfilled. They do not kiss yet. Instead, they sit on her tiny sofa drinking hot chocolate thick enough to stand a spoon in, talking for the first time without masks. He tells her about the bald man in the photo booth who turned out to be a repair technician who fixes the machines and always makes funny faces to test the flash. She tells him about the story of the metal box and the garden gnome and the glass man who finally painted the right expression. They laugh until their ribs ache. Outside, the rain stops completely and a shy moon appears between the clouds. When Nino leaves to fetch his scooter, Amélie stands at her window watching him disappear down the street. For one terrible second, fear rushes back. What if this was only a dream? What if tomorrow he changes his mind? She is about to dissolve into tears when her doorbell rings again. She opens it, and Nino is there, helmet under one arm, cheeks flushed. "I forgot something," he says. He steps inside, closes the door with his heel, and kisses her finally, properly, slowly, the way Paris kisses the sun at dawn. It tastes of rain and chocolate, and every small miracle she has ever performed coming back to her multiplied by 1,000. She feels her heart crack open like the crust of a perfect creme brulee, sweet, warm, unafraid. Later, much later, they ride through the sleeping city on his old Vespa, her arms tight around his waist, her cheek against his damp jacket that smells of summer rain and developing fluid. The streets are empty, the street lamps painting gold circles on wet asphalt, Jan Tiersen's accordion floating behind them like a guardian angel. She closes her eyes and feels the wind lift her hair, feels Paris itself exhale with relief because one of its shyest daughters has finally come home to life. Do you feel that same wind brushing your own face now, soft, forgiving, full of tomorrow? Let it carry away every leftover fear you still carry. You are allowed to be happy. You are allowed to be seen. The city has fallen completely silent now. Only the occasional drip from a gutter, the faint rustle of plane trees turning their leaves over in sleep, and my whisper left to cradle you. Let your breathing become as slow as the Seine at 4 in the morning. Let every last knot in your shoulders untie itself, because the story is folding itself gently toward its final pages, and you are almost home. Some days, or maybe weeks, later, time in Paris sometimes forgets to be linear, we see Amélie and Nino together the way other people see sunlight. Something natural, inevitable, quietly dazzling. They wake in her small apartment with its sloping ceiling and pale green walls, sheets tangled like laughter, morning light striping their bare shoulders in warm gold. She traces the tiny scar above his eyebrow with one fingertip, over and over, as though memorizing it the way blind people read Braille. He kisses the hollow beneath her ear and whispers that she tastes like sleep and Madeleine crumbs. They stay in bed far too long, listening to the city wake up beneath the window, the metallic groan of the first metro, the clatter of metal shutters rising at the bakery, the cooing of pigeons on the zinc roof that sounds exactly like gossip. They ride the scooter everywhere. She sits behind him, arms snug around his waist, chin resting on his shoulder, hair flying loose like a dark flag of surrender. They chase sunsets along the Canal Saint-Martin, stopping whenever the light turns the water the color of rosé wine. They buy hot chestnuts wrapped in newspaper that burn their fingers and taste of smoke and autumn. They kiss in photo booths, making silly faces on purpose so the strips will look like Nino's collection, then pin the new photos above her bed like constellations. At night they lie on the roof of his building watching satellites crawl across the stars, and she tells him which ones are actually the International Space Station because the glass man taught her. Nino laughs and says she knows everything, and she answers, softly, that she only knows how to love him. Trivia, the very last ones, just between us. Jan Tiersen originally wrote the famous waltz on a cheap toy piano he found in a flea market. The crack in the middle register is real and was kept in the final recording because it sounded like a heartbeat skipping. And the garden gnome that traveled the world? It now lives permanently in the window of the real Café de Deux Moulins, wearing a tiny paper aeroplane hat that children keep replacing. We see the others too, because Amélie's happiness ripples outward the way kindness always does. Her father, tanned and lighter by 10 kilos, returns from his round-the-world trip with a new girlfriend from New Zealand and a suitcase full of photographs of the gnome in front of every wonder on earth. Lucien has been promoted to manager of the grocery. Collignon, humbled, brings him coffee every morning without being asked. The glassman finishes his 20th and final Renoir, signs it for the first time with his real name, and invites the entire building for tea. When Amélie hugs him goodbye, his bones feel less fragile, as though joy has knit them stronger. Even Joseph, the jealous ex with the tape recorder, finally deletes the old cassettes and starts writing poetry again. One ordinary Tuesday afternoon, Amélie skips work, something she has never done, and drags Nino to the fun fair where they first almost met. They ride the ghost train after ghost train until the skeletons no longer frighten them, only make them laugh. She buys clouds of pink cotton candy that melt on the tongue like childhood. They win a goldfish at the ring toss and name it Blubber the Second, then release it into the canal, because bulls are too small for any living thing. At twilight, they climb to the top of Sacré-Cœur and watch Paris spread beneath them like a glittering promise kept. She leans her head against his shoulder and whispers, "I used to think the world was too big and too cruel, but now it feels exactly the right size, because you fit inside it with me." He kisses her hair and answers nothing, because some truths are too large for words. Have you ever noticed how happiness feels like warm bread fresh from the oven, simple, fragrant enough? Let that feeling fill every corner of your body tonight. Let it stay. And so life continues, small, not perfect, but perfectly alive. Amélie still dips her hand into sacks of grain at the market, just to feel the cool rivers of lentils running through her fingers. She still cracks the crust of her crème brûlée with the back of a spoon and smiles at the sound. She still helps strangers when no one is looking, because that is who she has always been. Only now she also lets herself be helped. She lets Nino carry the groceries, lets her father call every Sunday, lets the glass man paint her portrait wearing the green dress and the red scarf. Lets love be something she steps into instead of something she only arranges for others. On the very last night we see them, they are riding the scooter again, slower this time, almost drifting. The streets are empty, the moon full and low, the air sweet with linden blossoms. Amélie rests her cheek between Nino's shoulder blades and closes her eyes. The city lights blur into long golden ribbons around them. The accordion theme rises one final time, gentle, endless, like breathing. And somewhere inside that music you can hear every small miracle Amélie ever performed, coming back to her as one large, quiet, ordinary miracle. Being loved exactly as she is. Can you feel it too, that same quiet miracle, waiting for you on the other side of sleep? It has your name on it. It always has. So let the scooter carry them away into the soft Parisian dark. Let the accordion fade into the sound of your own slow heartbeat. Let the last of the rain dry on warm cobblestones. Everything is all right now. Everything is gentle. Everything is possible tomorrow. Good night, dear one. May your dreams be filled with red arrows pointing toward joy, with garden gnomes waving from faraway beaches, with the taste of crème brûlée and the certainty that someone, somewhere, is performing a tiny secret kindness just for you. Sleep deeply. Sleep softly. Sleep knowing the world is a little more tender because you are in it.